Tilehurst End podcast.
Read the blog
on thetilehurstend.com.
Right, well, you've all been asking for us to get some more former Reading players on, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by who I consider one of Reading's finest ever midfielders, Mr. Simon Osborn. Si, thanks very much for joining us.
Evening, gents. How are we?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. It's always better to come on after we've won a game, albeit at the expense of one of your former sides.
Yeah, no, I saw the result. Obviously, they're putting a decent run together, barring the result, obviously, last week. Seems to be coming together. A settled side, I think, makes a massive difference, and obviously scoring goals as well. So it's looking good, and Reading are renowned for those late runs, aren't they?
Yeah, fingers crossed. I don't know if they're going to be able to quite match the run of 2 years ago and win the title, but we could do with a decent playoff final rather than the one that we'll probably come on to talk about a bit later on.
Break. Yeah, don't mention that.
No. Well, getting started then, we'll start at the beginning then. How did you get your start in the game? How did you become a professional footballer?
I basically was playing for the district and county. I'm from Croydon way, so I was playing both county and district side, and one of the guys who was running the teams was affiliated in some regards to Palace. So I went over there, trained a few times, and then sort of concentrated a bit on school. And then towards the end of my sort of what was then the fifth year, which I think now is year 11, isn't it? I can't remember, 10.
Yeah, about 15, 16.
Like that. It's all changed, yeah. I kind of got back in and started training, then got offered a YTS apprenticeship. So signed the 2-year YTS apprenticeship and basically came out of school in sort of May and started the first week in July into full-time training, and fortunately stayed in football all the way till I retired, so which was great.
Yeah, I mean, you were at Palace when Steve Coppell had one of his or two of his spells there. And what are your memories of playing under Steve?
Yeah, I mean, he gave me my debut. You know, he signed me as a professional. He gave me my debut. I've got the utmost respect for Steve, and still call him Gaffer when I see him every now and then. And I've got a lot of time for him. He was a thinker of the game. He was only young when I first started out there. Probably, I think he was only sort of 34. So a young up-and-coming manager. Obviously, his career had been cut short, and he still likes to join in the odd five-a-side. And I mentioned about his long throw against France in the World Cup. He loves that one. Yeah. Some of you won't remember. That's 82, by the way, quite a way back. And he was great. You'd go in sometimes to ask him a few questions about why you weren't playing and whatever else. Did the usual stuff, and you'd come out there actually wondering what the hell you went in there for. He'd baffle you with a few bits and pieces. But no, I thought he was great. He was great for me at that particular time, and I'm indebted to him for giving him my first pro contract and for playing me.
You must have also played alongside or been in the same sort of dressing room as another future Reading manager as well, Alan Pardew. Did you have any hint that he'd go on to be a successful manager as he is now?
No, not really. Social manager, but not a manager. To be honest, no. Again, he came into the game late from local non-league to where I sort of was based. But good pro would do his utmost and run through brick walls for you. But I was never not convinced that he'd go on and do what he did. But he's doing a real fine job of it.
And obviously, you played infrequently for Palace. I think just over 50 games for the club over sort of 5-6 years. And then you made the move to Reading. How did that all come about?
Well, like you said, I'd sort of get in the team, play a certain amount of games and get out of it. And, I found it really frustrating that there was never any sort of settled run in it. And I just felt at that particular time my contract was coming to an end. I was at an age where I really felt that I wanted to go and play regular first team football somewhere. So I'd gone back to Palace in sort of pre-season and had a phone call. I think Colin Lee had watched me over in a testimonial game towards the end of the season, and it came about through the agent, through the club, that would I go over and sort of train for a week, which I did with Reading. Played in a game on a Saturday. I think it was at Whitney. In actual fact, one of the guys who tweets, James Cohen, will remember it probably better than I would. Played in the game and then sort of went back to Palace for all the sort of finer details to get sorted out, and it took a couple of weeks, and I signed, I think, in the end, a week before the season started at Reading. I talked to the guys. They've obviously just got promoted up from League One as it is now, and there was a real buzz about the place and how they wanted to play and how they saw me playing in that team. And like I said, the week I really enjoyed it and just wanted to go.
And was it Mark McGee and Colin Lee that sold you on the move, or did you have any other options to go to at the time?
No, I had other people that were interested. I just felt that at the time and where it was and how they'd come up and their vision of what they were up to for the next year. I know it didn't last that long, but it impressed me of what they wanted, how they saw me fitting into the team. Obviously, it was a good team a great team that had won the promotion the year before and a title. So for me to be wanted by a club like that, they made me feel that I'd be a big part of that season.
And there was on the opening day they got beat 1-0 up at Wolves, but slowly but surely found their feet in the division. And you were a big part of that. I mean, what was that? Did that team just carry the momentum through from the title-winning season?
Yeah, I think you always get that element of it. There's that air of confidence. You just come up as champions. There is that little bit of confidence running through the whole team. Sometimes when you go a goal down, you really feel that you're going to get that back. And I just felt that in certain games, it was that camaraderie in some respects that would carry you through. I remember getting absolutely hammered up at Sunderland, I think it was, and we come away with a 1-0. And there was no way we should have ever won that game. And Xhaka was brilliant, and everyone just dug in, and that was the best part of it for me. It was a great year for me, football wise, and with the people that were there, and it spurred me on to sort of want to play. It made the decision, I should say, leaving Palace the right one.
You scored 5 goals for Reading, but it's safe to say that most of those were quite spectacular. I think in the pre-match video before the games, they show your chip up at Oldham. Was that your favourite one?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, probably out of all of them. I enjoyed most of them. I can remember some of my goals, but that was quite a special one. Just the timing of the game and everything that had gone 1-0. We'd given a goal away, and I think I managed to get a little nutmeg on Richard Jobson. I can't remember if it was Mick Gooding played it to me, and then I don't. You just see things sometimes, and I sort of went for a sort of a half scoop, half chip, and sometimes I looked like a complete idiot, but fortunately it went in.
And who were your favourite teammates? Who did you sort of hang around with and room with?
I roomed quite a lot with Paul Holsgrove when he got there. Obviously, Dylan, I'm still big friends with Dylan Kerr now. Jeff Hopkins, I've bumped into here now. Obviously, AD, who does a bit of radio up there. Most of them I still speak to here and there when I see them. But it's the same as everything. I was only there a season. I think a lot of people forget. I only spent 11 months at Reading, and 3 of those I missed through injury. So it was a short time there, but it was enjoyable.
We've had Dylan Kerr on the show. He's quite a character, isn't he, Simon?
He is, Dylan. He can talk, that boy, yeah. But no, I still see Dylan. Obviously, I speak to him. He's out in Vietnam, and I still speak to him quite frequently. I saw him just before Christmas, so obviously, yeah, he's a good guy.
I mean, you came back from injury late in the season. It looked for a while as if you might miss the running, but I mean, you came back and played the part as we got all the way to Wembley. What I hate to touch on it really, but what do you remember of that day?
Like you said, it was a frustrating day. I'll be honest with you. Like I came back in, I obviously got injured on New Year's Day and damaged my knee quite badly, which played me up on and off for the next sort of 3 years really. And then there was a few of us carrying knocks going into the final, and I think just as soon as it went to the extra time, I think we'd run out of steam. If I'm blatantly honest with you, I think Bolton had a little bit more than us in reserve in some respects, and there was myself. Obviously, Lee Nogan was carrying a slight knock. Keith McPherson. There was 4 or 5 of us that season had kind of taken its toll on us. Like I said, I came back and literally 2 days after that final, I had an operation on my knee again. So for us, it was a strange day. It was a great day. We felt a little bit shortchanged with the Premier League being reduced and so on and so forth, and to put it all in that season, it's tough when you finish second to go into that. But after starting the game really well, we can all talk about the so-called penalty miss and whatever. But I just think in the second half we ran a little bit out of steam, and certainly when it went into extra time, I didn't think we had anything left really.
It was such a shame they won at Simon that year, because I thought personally that Reading were the best side in that league that year. I mean, I think we beat Middlesbrough at home and drew them away. I think they won the league that year, didn't they? And I just thought to put that side together without basically having no money, it was a fantastic achievement, and it was such a shame that it didn't end up in going to the Premier League.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, these are the things you can hark back on. There's no point in looking back on it with anything. That it was a great team and it was really enjoyable to play in it. Yes, it's disappointing, but with all due respect, we knew at the beginning of the season if we finished second, we'd be in the playoffs. I don't think anybody at the start of the season would envisage that is where we'd have ended up. But when you're there, then it becomes that little bit more of a disappointment that you've had such a great season. Like you say, I felt at times we played some fantastic football. I enjoyed playing in the way we played. The players, I think, like you say, the other signings, that one I don't think too many people mention too often is Darius Dovcek, who was a fantastic footballer. Him and AD formed a great little partnership. And even though we did finish second, and like you say, we probably should have done it, we still carried. I think AD missed a couple of months of the season. I missed 3. Stuart Lovell obviously missed bits and pieces here and there. And it was amazing really for a club of our stature, and like I said, if you compare probably wage bills to everybody else, it was a phenomenal achievement.
Got Got a couple of quick questions before we move on to your time after Reading from the listeners. One of them is from Mark Sugar, who asked, who was the most underrated player in that side you played in the 94-95 season?
Again, I've just mentioned him there. Darius was an underrated player, I felt. Mickey Goodin, I think, done a great job as a team player. And I think people don't realise, that the job that Lee Nogan did when he came in.
Yeah.
I think he kind of gave us a little bit of dimension, and him and Stuart Lovell at times were great up there. I mean, for centre midfield players live and die by centre forwards because they make runs for us. So, I would say through the team, that spine of the team are the ones that never really got massive amounts of plaudits would be those three guys.
Lovely stuff. And one from James Curran as well. It says, how far do you think that playoff losing team could have gone if we had got promoted in the end?
Difficult to say, isn't it? It's that momentum. I believe it was one of the best teams I played in football wise, and certainly, my most enjoyable. So there's no reason why, if we'd have got in that Premier League with a little bit of strengthening here and there, I'm sure we'd have done reasonably well in that. And it took a few more years for Reading to actually get up in it, but I'm pretty sure we could have emulated what they did.
Well, as we've hinted, the team unfortunately broke up. You were one of a number of first team players that left. I mean, what made you leave Reading? Was it a case of, obviously you went to QPR again, was it a case of they made an offer you couldn't refuse, or did you just feel maybe it was time to move on?
I think it was more that they made an offer to the club that the club couldn't refuse. I never asked to leave. There was never any feeling in my mind. Like I said, I had an operation 2 days after the season finished. So I was purely and simply concentrating on getting back fit for the following season. I think you'll find that QPR made an offer. Like I said, it was a pretty decent offer at the time from somebody that had bought for less than 100,000 a year before. So to make over £1 million of profit in that season, it was obviously something they couldn't turn down. I literally got the phone call. So there was a couple of clubs that were interested, and QPR, I felt at the time, if the club had accepted it and whatever else, they were looking at doing different things. Obviously Scott had left, Shaka was leaving too, so it looked as if that side was getting broken up for possibly the right reasons. If you look at it in hindsight, the money it generated there supported the club, and obviously the Medeski came out of it in the end. But there was no part of mine, and literally when it was that, I talked to a couple of clubs and felt that I wanted to get back in the Premier League, and that's the reason I signed there for QPR.
Well, what eased the blows? We got Michael Meeker in return, mate. So.
Yeah, you did get Leeds, yeah. That's right.
Obviously, you went back to QPR and played in the Premier League, but you only spent half a season there before you moved on to Wolves and joined back up with Mark McGee. Again, I mean, what was you thinking behind that move? Was it just not working out at Loftus Road?
Yeah, it just didn't. Yeah, I signed for the club with all the best intentions. Obviously, I was a little bit behind. Fitness wise, I was probably a week behind them, and it didn't feel right. I went there, and I really didn't enjoy my time there in any great shape or form. I couldn't, I sort of forced myself in the team, then missed the next game for whatever reasons that I couldn't quite understand, and it just didn't sit right. I wasn't enjoying my football. I wasn't playing regularly enough for what I felt, and I didn't feel at that particular time. I'd had a season the year before which I'd really enjoyed and played lots of games, and then I felt I'd taken a backward step and didn't feel that my game was going to progress. And like I said, it was only ever about playing games for me. It wasn't about, there's never been anything about money or that. I just wanted to play football, and I wanted to play as many games as I possibly could. And I felt at the time it wasn't quite working there. I wasn't seeing eye to eye with the manager at a particular time. So when the opportunity arose, and obviously, Mark had obviously left the season before to go to Leicester, and then left Leicester to go to Wolves, and there was a little bit of interest in myself again because I wasn't playing. It was something that when it did materialise, I jumped at it.
And, you spent, I think most games you played for any club was Wolves. Obviously, you had quite a bit of time at Wolves. So, I mean, what do you remember from your career after Reading? What were some of your highlights?
Yeah, like I said, I signed for Wolves. It was a big club at the time. And again, it was in a situation trying to push for the Premier League, which we didn't quite achieve while I was there, but we got very close a couple of times. But no, listen, like I said to you, I enjoyed every club I played at because all I wanted to do was play football. I wanted to play games and play as many games as I possibly could in my career. I struggled a little bit in the first season and a half. The knee injury that I'd picked up, obviously at Reading, had caused me more problems longer term than I thought it would do. So it's a little bit stop-start. I ended up in total from that Reading days, I ended up having 6 knee ops until I got that sort of semi-fixed as best it could do. So it was a little bit stop-starty there, but I really enjoyed Wolves as a place and as a club. It was the first time I'd really been sort of away from home as such, QPR and Reading, and not exactly far away from London. And I really enjoyed it. I played a lot of games up there. My family were all born up there, so it was a great experience for me, and I loved it. I loved the club up there, and played probably, like you said, the most games I did play was for them.
And then I said you moved on in later career, and Walsall was your sort of your final league stop off, and you ended up serving as assistant manager to Paul Merson. What was that like?
Eventful. I have to be careful with the words I libel and all that, and getting that. Now Paul was great. I went up and signed for Walsall. I had a little spell. Obviously, I moved away from Wolves, played a little spell till the end of the season at Tranmere. Then found myself out in the wilderness, really got messed about by an agent, which a lot of people will remember, and didn't have a club effectively till September. I sort of sat and watched Soccer Saturday and bits and pieces, and really was pondering what I was going to do. The agent left me in a lurch. The phone wasn't particularly ringing off the hook, and in the end, Brian Horton saved me in some respects. For a month, took me to Port Vale, played a month at Port Vale. Kind of reminded everybody that I still was sort of playing football, and then just disappeared into the wilderness, and then signed and played 2 years for Gillingham. So I went myself down there, managed to snap me Achilles down at Gillingham, which put me out for 6 months, which wasn't very clever. And then moved back, had an opportunity to move back to the Midlands and Walsall. Again, Colin Lee had taken over as manager, was talking about what his plans were, what he was going to do, the kind of signings he was talking about. And, I felt that at that stage of my career, it was something that I could possibly do. And also then looking further afield from that, learn from someone like Colin, who was a great coach, about possibly moving into that side of the game. And that was one of the reasons I left Gillingham and home effectively to go back to the Midlands. Went up there, we signed Vinnie Samways, Paul Merson, Steve Carica. We had a fantastic team, obviously Neil Wembley and people like that, and went up there, and we did have a great team, and it was a joy. Merce first came in as a player, and what a player he was. And I think the season at Boxing Day, I think we were sitting something like 8th in the Championship, and everybody was talking about us. And then things conspired against us. Obviously, Merce had his problems that we all know about, which are well documented, and disappeared off to Arizona. Vinnie Samways got injured, and bits and pieces like that. And we ended up getting relegated. So Colin left about 3 games from the end, and found myself helping Merce out for a little bit in that season. Kind of went in the following season, but it wasn't working. It was really difficult for me to combine the two of coaching and playing. Stepped back out of it, and then ended up towards the end of the season redoing it again, and ended up with Paul's assistant. And like I said, the man's a legend as a player. He's a fantastic fella. I just don't think things quite worked out for him management wise. But I stayed there till the end of sort of my contract, and that was kind of it really. There was I applied for the job and bits and pieces, never quite got there, and went off to Hereford for a little bit, and then wasn't particularly enjoying it. So I was kind of called it a day and moved back home.
Yeah, and then you sort of first real step into management was then at Bromley, where I believe you came into contact with a current Royal in Gareth McCleary. I
did, yeah. I mean, I retired, moved back obviously down to the Bromley area where my wife was from and all her family, and sort of uprooted sticks and came back. And one of my friends from Crystal Palace, Bobby Barry, was playing at Bromley. I went down to watch one day. He got injured. I wasn't doing anything. He phoned me, so I went, and I played for Bromley that season. Then helped out a little bit with the coaching. Then the following season done the same, and then eventually took over, and we'd signed a lad from Slough, a young Gareth McCleary, who had I think it was a broken leg at the time. Was on his comeback for it. Mark Goldberg had spoken to someone, and this lad had come in and was training. And then he kind of came in towards the end of the first season when we got promoted out of the Ryman Premier League. Played a couple of games, and you looked at him and thought, oh, this kid's got a little bit something about him, powerful, quick. And then the following season when we took over the coaching, we worked a little bit with Gareth, worked a bit on his game. I'd like to say improved him a bit. He'll probably say something differently, but and lo and behold, we had him for that season. He played really well, impressed, and got his move off to Notts Forest, which was great. I mean, we sort of had the year before sold Sam Wood into the league. at Brentford and managing to move Gareth on. And I've seen him when I've popped back there a couple of times, and scored a fantastic goal on Saturday. But that is something that Gareth has in his locker. You can see him. If he's on his game and at it, he's a real handful. He runs at people, he causes problems, and he does get his goals.
Yeah, and I said it, Reading are very much reaping the rewards now, and it's great to see him in such great form. So, you've had a couple of managers since. I believe your last job was at Margate, which you left in December. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And obviously, you're still looking for a return to the game, or have you closed the book on football?
No, I never closed the book. Obviously, I played for a charity team called the UK Three Lions now. I was out in Russia last year with those guys. They're basically a team of artists and performers and the odd ex-pro, and we go and play charity matches around the country. I'm actually hosting one myself at Bromley Football Club on the 16th of March, where we'll play a team of celebrities against ourselves, and then after the game, these guys will perform. A couple of them are on The Voice and have been on X Factor and stuff like that. So we kind of do that. Will I go back into it again? I don't know. The same old stuff in non-league, unfortunately, sometimes it's not how I'd like it to be done, and you end up falling out with people and you shouldn't. But I still love football. If something came up that was right for me, you jump at it. Of course, it's in your blood and you can't get away from it. Much as you say you will and you tell the wife you will, but you never can.
No, not at all. And just a couple of final questions before we let you go. Then, the best player you played with?
Best player I played with? God, dear me, Gordon Cowans.
Yeah.
I would say Gordon Cowans, Ian Wright, and Steve Ball, the three.
Very nice. And your best player you played against?
Gaza.
Was that when he was at Borough?
No, that was when he was at Tottenham. And
he was at Tottenham.
Yeah, I would say at that particular time he was probably one of the best players in the world. I was only a young lad and managed to play against him for Crystal Palace, and he had everything. But up until that injury, I mean, even after the injury, you saw what kind of a player he was. But before he had that injury, he was something special.
He was so strong though when he on the ball. No one ever seemed to move him off it.
Yeah, that's what he kind of had everything at that particular time. He was quick, he could dribble, like you say, he was strong. You couldn't shift him off the ball, but he could pass, long and short passing, and he got goals. He was your probably complete midfielder if there is one. He was kind of it at the time. We talk about Paul Scholes and that of this world. He was, when you played against those kind of guys, they're the ones. I didn't have the fortune to play against Paul Scholes, but I did Gaza. So.
And one final question before we let you go from a listener. Lord Treby asked, if Reading get to the playoff final this year, what advice would you give Nigel Atkins and the team?
Win. Yeah, make sure you know who your penalty taker is before the game. No, like I said, I think that they've got a real good chance at the moment they're on of getting in the playoffs. And like I said, once you get in those, it's a lottery. It really does become a lottery, because you have an off day or you have a great day, you're in the final. And as soon as you get in that final, like I said, nerves, injuries, all these kind of things can take place. And like I said, I think people have had their question marks over Nigel Atkins, but I think he's got a settled team now, and I'm sure that they'll push on and do what they need to do.
Lovely stuff. And where can we catch you in the charity game again? 15th of March, you say?
The 16th of March, Sunday the 16th of March at Bromley Football Club. The gates open at 11 o'clock. We're having a kick-off of the game at 1 o'clock, and about 3 o'clock there'll be some music. It's a real sort of fun day, kids' day especially as well, to get down there, meet some guys that have been on The Voice and the X Factor, and see them play a bit of football. I may try and do a little bit, but not a lot. But get themselves down there.
Lovely stuff. Well, we'll put a link up to the event up on the page when it goes up. But Si, thanks very much for joining us.
Gents, have a good night.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
Cheers, mate.
The Tilehurst End podcast.
Read the blog
on thetilehurstend.com.